Hey everyone! In today's video, I'm going to explain the summary of the Margaret Laurence speech, My Final Hour, and also go through some important questions related to it. Here's the best part for these questions. You don't need to memorize everything. If you're familiar with the summary, you will find that answers to the questions are directly linked to the specific parts of the summary. So once you know the key points of the speech, answering these questions becomes super easy. So let's get started with the summary first, and then we will break down the important questions. Margaret Laurence, My Final Hour is a heartfelt speech delivered to graduating students training for church ministry. Speaking as a Christian, writer, parent, and concerned citizen, Laurence shares her personal beliefs about faith, humility, social justice, and the urgent need to oppose nuclear weapons and global suffering. She reflects on her limitations, the state of the world, and the role of artists in affirming life. Despite a terrifying world marked by injustice and the threat of nuclear war, she remains hopeful, urging the students to embrace radical activism and the social gospel. Faith and humility as guiding forces. Laurence begins by expressing nervousness about addressing future ministers, humorously noting her need for a solid lectern to lean on both physically and spiritually. She identifies faith as her sustaining force, something she relies on daily. She advises the students that feeling stupider as the age is normal, often coinciding with their grown children realizing their parents are not as foolish as they once thought. This sense of stupidity, she explains, partly comes from the outdated knowledge, like struggling with the new technology, but also from learning humility. True humility in a religious sense means accepting human limitations, no self-effacement. Lawrence admits she will never master fields like music, painting, science, or even her own writing, where she will never read all the novels she wants to write once she is fully satisfied with. However, accepting him limitations doesn't mean giving up. It means striving to expand knowledge and abilities with humility. The need for the radical social activism. Laurence believes that as people age, they should become more radical, not less, in fighting for their passionate beliefs. She doesn't mean political party but a commitment to the social justice and activism. Contrary to the idea that only young people are activists, she sees people of all ages today deeply concerned about the world's problem. The world is in crisis, filled with injustice, suffering, fear, yet Laurence holds on to hope. As a Christian, she affirms the social gospel, which calls for loving one's neighbor as oneself, a principle as challenging now as ever. She urged the students to live out this commandment by actively addressing global issues, emphasizing that individual lives matter and no one is ordinary. The threat to nuclear war. Laurence reflects on her generation's experience coming of age after the 1945 atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. These events showed humanity's ability to destroy all life, changing the world forever. The bombs were unthinkable, yet they happened, and later generations learned of their lasting harm, like radiation affecting survivors and unborn children. Today's nuclear weapons are far more powerful than those early bombs, making the great even greater. Lawrence is alarmed by the world leaders who casually talk of winning a nuclear war or limited nuclear conflicts, using terms like overkill that hide the true evil of such destruction. She cites Dr. Helen Caldicott, who warns that a nuclear war could kill 90% of the Americans, Canadians, Russians, and others within 30 days. Leaders' failure to imagine the horror, scorched bodies, ruined cities, and no medical help makes his threat more dangerous. Lawrence believes civil defense plans are useless as shelters would become tombs in a contaminated world. Global suffering and preventable tragedies. Beyond the nuclear threats, Lawrence highlights other global crises. She recalls seeing children in some mainland dying of thirst, a situation now worse. She references Dr. Barbara Ward, who argued that redirecting money from the arms to human needs could provide fresh water worldwide. Dr. Caldicott notes that one-third the cost of Trident submarine could eradicate malaria, a disease Lawrence saw devastate child in Africa, including her own, who survived due to the medical access. Other backs in Canada, indigenous people in the grassy narrows suffer from the mercury poisoning, a preventable tragedy. These examples show how resources spent on a weapon could instead save lives, yet military spending continued to rise. The role of artists and the responsibility. As a writer, Lawrence feels a moral duty to oppose the nuclear arms race and affirm life value. Artists, whether working in a words, paint, or a film, celebrate life and pass on stories, song, and skill to future generation. She asks if we can imagine a world where these creations are destroyed and no future generation exists. A real possibility if nuclear war occurs. Artists must not stand by the passively but work to prevent this. Lawrence clarifies she won't write propaganda as that would betray her craft, but she must write truthfully about the human struggles and the joys, honoring people as living, suffering, and joyful. As a citizen, she extends the responsibility to advocate for the justice and peace globally. Hope amid fear. Despite the war's terror, Lawrence remains hopeful, driven by the human will to survive and care for the future generation. She rejects psychic numbing, the temptation to ignore the problem. Insisting the won't vanish, she urged the student to take responsibility as custodians of the earth, making governments listen and working for the justice and peace for all. Her faith in the social gospel and the power of collective action fuels her belief that change is possible even in a hurting world. Now let's talk about the conclusion. Margaret Laurence, My Final Hour is a powerful call to action for the future ministers, blending personal reflection with the urgent plea for the social justice. She emphasizes faith and humility as guiding forces, encouraging students to accept limitation while striving for the growth. Laurence advocates for the radical activism, rooted in the social gospel to address global crises like nuclear threats and preventable suffering. Her experiences from the Hiroshima's legacy to African children's struggle highlight the war's pain and the need for the action. As writer, she sees artists' role in affirming life and fighting for a future where human creations endure. Despite fear, her hope in the humanities will survive, and the care inspires her vision of the justice and peace. Is the summary enough for these questions and the other exam questions? So yes, big yes. Now let's move on to the first important question. If you refer back to the summary I just explained, you will find the relevant part that will help you to answer it. Question number 1. Who was Margaret Laurence addressing in her speech, My Final Hour? So relevant summary part is the introduction delivered to the graduating students training for the church ministry and the body faith and humility as the guiding forces addressing future ministers. Okay, so if you check the summary, then you will find the answer like faith and humility as the guiding forces and the introduction. Let's move on to the second question, which is what was the main cause of the Margaret's death? Anyway, the summary doesn't include her cause of death as it focuses on the speech content. You would need to memorize the detail separately, so I will tell you. Margaret Laurence died on the January 5, 1987 by suicide through a drug overdose. She had been diagnosed with advanced lung cancer a year earlier, which was spreading to other organs, prompting her decision to end her life. Number 3. In what ways did Margaret Laurence become radical in her last decade of her life? So relevant summary body is the need for the radical social activism. As people say, they should become more radical in fighting for their passionate belief, social justice and activism. So here, the radical point, the role of the, this not. Yeah, the need for the radical social activism. You will have to write this part. And you will take the introduction like this. You can answer this question if you thoroughly revise the summary. Number 4, discuss Laurence's commitment to social causes as seen in her speech, My Final Hour. Relevant smart summary part is the need for the radical social activism, the threat of the nuclear war, global suffering and preventable tragedies, the role of artists in responsibility, and the conclusion. So all the points are given in the above summary. You can check it. Number 5, the most important question. Okay, so this is the most important question. Write a critical appreciation of the Margaret Laurence by the final hour. So let me tell you how to use the summary to answer this question. So first introduction, then body. Okay, then move on to the conclusion. So you can read it, and here you will find the answers. Like you have to write the introduction. In the body part, you have to write the themes like expand on faith, humility, and the social gospel, faith and humanity point the need for the radical social activism. And the tone and style highlight the conversational tone and the anecdotes like feeling stupider, Somaliland from the faith and humility and global suffering, and add analysis of the imagery like scorched bodies from the threat of the nuclear war. Okay, and the significance use the summary's conclusion. Call for the justice, hope, and nuclear war section to discuss the speech relevance. In last, you have to write the conclusion. Summarize the speech impact using the summary's final point about the inspiring action. Okay, then so basically you need to summarize. If you know the summary well, you will easily be able to answer these questions. Remember, the key to answering this question is focusing on the relevant parts of the summary. I hope this helps, and if you have any more questions, don't hesitate to ask me in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for the more helpful videos. See you in the next one. Thank you very much. Har Har Mahadev.